Good evening, everybody. I was gonna play Round Ball Rock over here, but due to time constraints, we're not going to do that tonight. Welcome to our NBA Draft Special. Now, before we get to the show, I've actually done my research and I have some scouting reports on my lineup for tonight. So, first, on top from St. John's University, a man who has an amazing motor and has provided some of the best 40 stat times that I've ever seen from the Combine. Good evening, Mr. Jay Kaplan.
Good evening, Rabbi.
Then from Hofstra, School of Champions, wingspan of 6'3", the downside of trash talking a little too much on social media and being put in Facebook jail repeatedly. Good evening, Anthony Straits.
Hey, look, I've been saying that, okay? Freedom of speech is dead on social media these days.
We'll talk about that.
Rabbi, you didn't have the NBA draft jingle to play?
For copyright infringement reasons,
okay.
Not do that. I am the man who is undrafted, put on this show on the fly, so I was picked up at free agency, so there really is nothing about me. My name is Stephen Rabinowitz. We'll get to all things NBA draft in just un momento, but first let's talk real college basketball, which actually kicks off next Wednesday in our opener for tonight. As the new NCAA season is about ready to go, that association is already making plans to not lose almost another $1 billion for the NCAA tournament in 2021 with one word, bubble. The plan is for one city to host all rounds to minimize travel and to prevent any possible coronavirus spread. Indianapolis and the surrounding suburbs looks like the answer, and they're hosting the Final Four anyway in 2021. So they're going to have everything else on the fly. Gentlemen, is this feasible? Jay?
Is it feasible? I don't know. I mean, look, does it need to be done to give the tournament the best chance of succeeding? 100%. I mean, look, I guess time will tell if it's actually feasible. It's a lot of games to play in the early rounds anyway in a single city. As you said, Rabbi, Indianapolis, which is decided the Final Four, is right now the front runner for this endeavor. But here's the thing. They only have 4 arenas that can handle NCAA tournament games, and under normal circumstances, you need more than that. I mean, here's what they've got in Indianapolis proper. You got Bankers Life Fieldhouse, which is the home of the Pacers. You've got Indiana Farmers Coliseum, which is the home of the Indiana University, Purdue University Jaguars.
Pee-wee, as we all
that's
like.
Right. I did not want to try and pronounce the acronym, so I laid it all out. Hinkle, the world-famous Hinkle Fieldhouse, where Butler University plays their games. And, of course, Lucas Oil Stadium, which is the home of the Colts and the site of the Final Four. A couple of other options that they're going to have to look at to explore that are, in my mind, obvious. You have the on-campus arenas at Notre Dame in South Bend, Indiana University in Bloomington, and Purdue in West Lafayette. NCAA Senior VP of Basketball Dan Gavitt was on a Zoom conference with the media Monday afternoon. He said the plan is to still hold the NCAA tournament in March. He did say they're going to try and work in some flexibility if needs be, if they have to push it back, if circumstances dictate that. But he did reinforce that the NBA's explicit, and that was his word, mission is to hold the tournament in 2021. It's going to be played safely, with many further details to be determined in the coming weeks and months. Gavitt said. There's no word yet on whether fans are going to be allowed to attend the games, and if they're not, then it doesn't matter where you play. It doesn't matter if you're looking at smaller universities that where on-campus arenas are small, kind of like St. John's, where their on-campus arena can only hold about 6,000. If there's no fans, it doesn't matter. You got 94 feet and 2 baskets, you're good to go. The number of venues is the question. And like I said, I mentioned, 4 obvious ones, 3 potential others. Gavitt said that you need at least 8. That's a reasonable number for a 68 team field, but the thing is they're also going to need like dozens more for teams to practice on leading up to the tournament. And here's the thing, the NCAA committee, basketball committee, is careful to note that this tournament will not be, as the rabbi referred to it, held in a bubble, as that apparently is not an accurate description of what the NCAA is attempting to pull off. Instead, the preferred term is a controlled environment. I know, Rabbi, you'll have fun with that.
Kind of like how baseball did it for the playoffs, though, too. That's kind of what they're doing.
yeah, I mean, there's the thing. The NCAA pays to put the tournament on, and the costs are expected to be high, though no accurate estimation of how many millions, or as you said, Rabbi, billions of dollars, it will run the organization, and that's not been made public yet. Here's the mantra, guys, and you're going to hear it throughout the college basketball season: March or bust. They cannot afford to have this tournament not happen for a second year in a row. They will do everything in their power to pull it off, from this single city endeavor to changing the requirements for being considered by the selections committee to even passively shrinking the number of teams from the established 68. This is as much a financial necessity as it is a competitive one. Guys, once again, we are looking at another sport where we're seeing the organizing body appearing to have the best intentions in terms of what it means to the players and the fans, those like me who love March Madness, to get the games played. But at the end of the day, as we all know, it is all about the Benjamins. I wish them luck. I really hope they can pull this off, because I can't go 2 years without March Madness. I may lose my mind.
Already. Again.
Again. Exactly.
Yeah, you think about when the tournament was canceled. It was literally the week we were going to do our tournament show.
Our preview
That's
show,
pretty much what it was. It was literally the day of. I remember being at Madison Square Garden. I talked to you over the phone. We was talking about how we was going to do things on the fly because the NBA was talking about not doing any fans, and suddenly it just, like, literally March 11th is a day that I think a lot of people will never forget if you're a sports fan, because it seemed like every day just changed that night. The NBA can't postpone the season, suspending the season. And then every day just kind of a domino effect. And I was, like I said, in the middle of Madison Square Garden when it seemed like everything was happening at one time. But the idea of this bubble, and you think about this, Indiana is a basketball, a basketball country anyway.
The basketball state.
Yeah, yep. They did the movie Hoosiers for Pete's sake. But I mean, right now, I'm thinking about the logistics of it. Like, obviously, you gotta have testing, and how do you control this this bubble, if you will? What about family members? Are they gonna be allowed in? What about team personnel? And obviously, athletic directors, schools, and obviously the players, and those are things you have to take into consideration. Travel, back and forth, between different sites within the same city. Because, like I said, you only need maybe like 7 or 8 areas, and you have a lot of high schools too that have pretty, obviously regulation size basketball courts that you can do, especially like the first early round games.
Yeah.
One of the things I was asking Rabbi, I was talking to you about was, what are you gonna do about like the playing games? Do they play that game at Baker's Life Fieldhouse? What happens then? The thing is though with Baker's Life Fieldhouse is that the Pacers are going to be using that arena around March or even May. If you look at the NBA schedule and how it's now being broken down into 2 sessions, so that's something that will have to be taken into consideration. Yeah. The other colleges though, like Notre Dame, Purdue, Indiana, Butler, they have an idea, but my question is just how they pull this off, because we're not talking about the NBA bubble where there was 22 teams, or baseball during the playoffs when there's only a handful of teams. We're talking about 68 players and over maybe 300 players, 68 teams, along with with personnel and representatives from each university, maybe family members, because you gotta understand these are young men, these are kids that we're talking about. So the testing, do they quarantine for a certain amount of days prior to the tournament?
They're gonna have to, and they've talked about that.
Yeah, what about conference tournaments? How much of a break do they have? Will they have between the end of the conference tournament, Selection Sunday, to the actual start of the tournament, which was only like 48 hours apart back in the past, but now you're talking about a situation where teams may have to quarantine and they get tested before they even step on a basketball court. So those are a lot of questions that need to be answered first before they can, write this in stone about having this entire tournament in Indianapolis. I mean, I understand the money part of it. Hey, look, CBS and Turner Sports are paying a lot of money to broadcast these games year in and year out. But also, what about the women's side as well? I mean, this is the men's portion. We haven't talked about the women's tournament as well, and that was canceled also. So there's a lot of questions that need to be answered before anyone really feels comfortable talking about the idea of an NCAA tournament bubble.
If you think that the NCAA cares about any of these specifics right now, I have a bridge to sell you. I think very simply, they'll make this up as they go along. In fact, I think the fact that they're even so hopeful, considering we're at a worldwide peak right now with cases across the country, that they're going to get this season going and finished. I mean, for God's sakes, we have double-digit NCAA football games being canceled week after week after week. The fact that nothing is changing right now in NCAA basketball, and honestly, nothing really changed in NCAA football, makes me think that this is really a pipe dream and to be like, hey, everybody, everything is fine. We have a plan. We got this.
Rabbi, here's the difference.
What is the difference?
I'm going to tell you. The difference between college football and college basketball is this. College football did not have a plan. They really didn't. And part of it is because they were hamstrung in certain conferences by the existing public health restrictions. College basketball has a guy at its center, and that's Dave Gavitt. There is nobody like that who runs college football, which is why college football did not have a plan. Here's the other reason why college football is seeing its issues. 85 players. College basketball teams maybe have 20.
Still, they're in a
wait. And
I am waiting.
Kids are on campus you have kids in class on campus right now. When the college basketball season starts around next week, the rest of the students gone for winter break. They're going to be able to, if they're smart and they don't have the distractions and the temptation of other kids on campus, and because there's less players involved, I think they could at least get most of the season in.
It's not that easy, Jay. It's not that easy anymore. We're at the point of no return right now.
It's easier.
We're in mitigation mode. We're in mitigation mode right now. We're at the point of no return. Even Rick Pitino, who I would never listen to in any way, shape, or form, says you can't have this right now. And honestly, there's a case of all these cases in Iona. There's so many places that are already withdrawing from these preseason tournaments. And I think
right there, they need to can that.
I know that's one thing.
And that's the thing. That's the first thing. The one thing that college basketball needs to do is scrap these multi-team events. You get rid of them. You can't have them in the current environment.
But they're there.
You play a strict conference schedule. The conferences now are playing 18 games anyway. So you play a few more to get maybe a 20, 25 game.
Yeah, but then how are you going to determine who the best teams are? Because now you have nothing to go against. Gonzaga is the number one team in the country right now. If they don't play anybody outside of their own conference, you're going by talent. So that's the reason why we have these games in November and December. So now you're kind of taking away the whole idea of college basketball.
Like I said, you're going to see different criteria from the selection committee for what is the resume to be considered for selection, because you're not going to have these things. You have to, as you said, we're in mitigation, so you mitigate what you can, and the first thing you do is you get rid of these multi-team events.
They're not going to do them now all of a sudden. There's still so many scheduled for December. There's an ACC Big Ten Challenge coming in a couple of weeks. So this is stuff that's already there.
I saw that the Jimmy V Classic is still on schedule. I think they're going to hold it in one place.
They decided today that they're going to kind of scramble that in the Champions Classic between December 2nd and December 3rd.
They're still trying to cram these tournaments together. But they have 5 months to kind of.
That's a mistake.
It absolutely is.
You're leaving too many. You're introducing a variable that you cannot control.
Okay. We need to move on because we have a draft that we're talking about right now. The NBA draft is all virtual this year in Bristol, and Adam Silver is not in a fake room anymore with a fireplace in it and having fans up there. It's a very simple draft. We're already in the middle of it, but let's rewind to the beginning. The top picks went about as expected. The three that we mentioned last week were your order of 1, 2, and 3. So let's start with Anthony, who doesn't have to talk about the balls for a second consecutive week. Congratulations. That falls on me. Right
Called
pick,
it, Ant. You called it.
Right pick, wrong pick for number 1. Anthony Edwards, guard, Georgia, for the Timberwolves.
It's the right pick. If you think about Minnesota's need right now, they needed defense, they needed versatility. But also, you think about Anthony Edwards, he's the best fit right now. When you think about, you already have D'Angelo Russell and Karl-Anthony Towns on your team already. I feel like the two other guys that went in the top 3 actually kind of would have overlapped those two players that they already have, since they all play the same position. So Edwards is kind of the best pick. They got some of his strengths: powerful guard, elite, length and explosiveness, tough to contain, transition, very athletic. He's a 3-level scorer who can function on and off the ball, which is important because D'Angelo Russell is a very ball-dominant point guard who excels at the pick and roll. So to compensate for that, you do need somebody who can play without the basketball, especially on offense. He made 42. Here's a stat: 42 plus jumpers in 32 games out of transition, which is actually a good strength of his. Very good in the open court, and has great quickness. One of his areas though that he has to improve on is that he reminds you a little too much of Anthony Bennett when they draft him a little bit. Like, it's the passion there. Is he going to be engaged 100% of the time? Andrew Wiggins is another guy that kind of comes to mind. Like, that's a bit of a question mark. Like, okay, where's his head going to be as far as effort? And also, he be streaky at times. He shot 29% from threes, which is totally going to improve. And if you want to play in the NBA, we know today's NBA is more of an up-tempo, up and down game, and three-point shooting is so important right now. But this is a good pick for Minnesota, and he's one of the youngest players in the draft. I mean, he's he's 19 barely. So there's a lot of untapped potential that's there. But right now, Minnesota's, if they're about developing him, then it's a great pick, because I can't see him coming in right away and making a huge impact right out of the gate. I don't think he's this draft time to pick. I really don't think there was really anybody in this draft that would in that kind of level of making an immediate impact. But Anthony Edwards, he fits in well with Minnesota as far as what they need, what their needs are.
All right.
Yeah, look, I agree with you, Anthony. I think this is a good fit. Does he need to, grow up? I mean, like you said, he's 19, but yeah, I mean, he passes he passes the NBA eye test. And I think in terms of, is he a safer pick than LaMelo Ball? In terms of, is he a better fit than LaMelo Ball for the Wolves and what they're trying to do out there? Yeah.
All right, guys. Let's move on to the Golden State Warriors. They've had this number 2 pick. Some people thought they would trade it. They kept it, and they went with probably the most talented person in this draft, center James Wiseman from Memphis. We're going down the line of college experience, to freshman, to 3 games, to not anywhere near college. Okay, let's talk about Golden State's new prized possession at number 2.
This is hands down the right pick. I said this on last week's draft preview. What he brings is what the Warriors need: a rim protecting center, a plus rebounder, a rim runner in transition. He won't need to have his number called on offense to make an impact. As I said, he has the potential to be among the best centers in the NBA defensively, potential, DPOY potential because of his ability to, protect the rim. He has enough what they call short area quickness to slide in front of drivers, can test their shots, also good at rotating over from the weak side as a real threat, as a shot blocker from the weak side. Offensive players are going to have to know where this guy is because he can block shots from a variety of angles. He's one of those guys where the threat of his length alone is going to be a deterrent of attempts at the basket. He does go for a lot of blocks, and you'd like to see him get a little more disciplined in the shots that he chooses to chase. Might lead to foul trouble early at the end until he learns the nuances of the NBA game. But he also typically does not take himself out of rebounding position in the way, a guy he's been compared to, Hassan Whiteside, has the propensity to do. Wiseman projects, as I said, as a plus rebounder. He's got ability to high point the ball and leap off 2 feet, grabs almost everything he gets his hands on.
He should be. He's 7'1".
Hey, we've all known 7'1" guys who have been earthbound.
Oh, I know, but he should be.
Right. So, here's the thing. Even when he gets outmaneuvered for position, he's great at reaching over the top of guys without fouling. Might be a little harder for him to do that in the NBA again until he figures out the nuances. He'll need to get stronger in the bottom half of his body so he doesn't get buried underneath the hoop or get boxed out from rebounding areas on defensive rebounding opportunities. on his offensive game, look, he should become one of the best finishers in the league on offense. He runs the floor like a wing, great speed, long strides, covering distances very quickly. He's going to be a great trailer, and even at times to be the lead man option for guards to hit out in front on the break. He's got good touch around the rim, particularly he stands out in the pick and roll. He's got elite level roll to the rim ability because he covers so much ground quickly and he has an enormous catch radius and soft hands, which you need if you're going to, spend your days in front of the basket. You throw it up, he'll go get it. As I said, there's also some real shooting potential there. Does a great job of using his flexibility and mobility to get into position. Terrific at reading the ball off the rim. He creates a ton of second chance opportunities. Another way for him to be a positive impact guy and be a double-double type of guy without having his number called. Like I said last week, we are talking about a very small sample size. But you look at his natural skill set, his basketball IQ, being very coachable. It's why NBA talent evaluators considered Wiseman to be among the safest players in the draft, while also having some true, high level defensive upside.
Yeah, I think the one thing that's going to be interesting with Wiseman going forward is, first of all, he has a lot of the same abilities as Draymond Green does, but obviously Wiseman can play the 5. And with Wiseman being able to play the 5, we'll get to the net selection in a little while. Let's not go crazy with that mentioning. But Wiseman can play the 5, and I think that's something that the Warriors need. I think he has the potential to really be a Rookie of the Year candidate. All right. Great. Thank you for giving me LaMelo Ball at number 3, guys.
Hey.
I do think, though, he went to number 3 to the Charlotte Hornets. I do think this guard is very good in the fact that the one quality of any of these top 3 guys that you would want in an NBA player is his court vision and passing. I think that's something that you really need to look at, and he's much, much better than his brother Lonzo at that particular strength. He needs to shoot, and he needs to shoot bad. He shot 25% from three-point range last season for the Australian League, and he averaged nearly 7 attempts a game from three-point range. He has the quality of shots, but it doesn't come in, and if that happens, they might say, you know what, he's just going to pass it. Let's block all of his lanes. I think Charlotte needed a star, though. I think Charlotte needed someone who is going to sell tickets, and Mitch Kupchak got it. You have a decent backcourt with Devontae Graham and Terry Rozier. Graham had a breakthrough season last year. He's now a starter for this team. Rozier can play a bunch of different positions. He can play the 3. He can play the 4 if you want to. And you have some good three-point shooters in there. Devontae Graham is a 37% three-point shooter. So you have the makings of something there in Charlotte. I think this is the safe pick, I think, at number 3 because Ball has the most talent, and it's a very good pick for me. Because I could not pronounce that Israeli kid's last name if my life depended.
You know what? I do have one question. Now that LaMelo is in Charlotte, can LeVar Ball and Michael Jordan finally have that one-on-one and do a trash talk?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh,
yeah.
The answer to that is simply going to be a big fat over.
Rabbi, all I'm going to say about LaMelo Ball is this. He shot less than 38% from the floor, barely 25% on threes. He's going to be dared to take those shots.
Oh, absolutely. But his court vision is phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, look, at this point, you're talking about a guy who is, look, does he have potential to be, better than, let's say, a Sean Livingston type? When Sean Livingston was at his top of his game when he was coming out of LSU before he tore up his knee. To me, that's the guy I look at and see, can you be that, either what he could have morphed into or even what he wound up being and having a nice career. It's a question of whether or not this guy is willing to put in the work to improve his shot and improve his game in terms of the weaknesses he has at the NBA level. Look, the NBL in Australia is a competitive league, no doubt about it, but it's a different type of league. He's going to get banged around, and because of his last name alone, everybody's going to come hunting for him. You know what? Because like you said, he automatically is going to become the face of that franchise, whether he's earned it or not.
Yeah, let's not make this the LaMelo Ball target practice show, but I'm sure Anthony will give you a few shots.
Yeah, I mean, I said the last few years that LaMelo was going to be the best ball brother because of his highest ceiling potential. I thought he was a lot better than Lonzo, but I think this time around, I think he's a little more mature, less LeVar in the picture, less of the circus surrounding LaMelo this time around. He's played professionally, obviously, in Australia. I feel like the right coach will bring out his potential. And really, he had to get out of a lot of the habits. You got to understand, his father coached all three Ball brothers really for most of their playing days growing up. So there's a lot of bad habits that's gonna have to coach out of him. It's a matter of if Melo is ready to put the effort into it.
I think he will, and that's one of the reasons why a Ball brother went in the top 3 again. Jesus, who would have thought?
Those pair of brothers to have top 5 picks.
Top 3 too, because Ball was number 2 when he went to the Lakers. All right, moving on. We talked Knicks possible picks last week at their sad number 8 pick, because God forbid they could get anything close to the top 3. And they sure did pick, and they picked the Naismith Player of the Year from 2019-2020, that being Obi Toppin, forward from Dayton, someone who I would have loved to see in the NCAA tournament, but unfortunately that did not happen. Let's criticize the first pick of the Leon Rose era, and I wrote this before because that's kind of like an evergreen status with Knicks draft picks.
It is.
Jay.
This is the right pick based on who was available at the time the Knicks were picking. As I said to you guys before we came on the air, the minute I saw how the 5, 6, and 7 picks were coming down, I had a feeling that Toppin, a hometown boy, might fall to the Knicks. I know that they have a logjam of guys that fit Toppin's profile, but if Leon Rose is all in on player development, then Toppin gives the Knicks a reason to let some of those other, power forward center types just go. Don't pick them back up. He's the best pick and roll big in the draft, an absolute monster athlete in terms of his explosiveness. He's got great leaping ability, elite level dunker and finisher at the rim. He made 76.7% of all his shots at the rim in non-post-up situations, according to Synergy Stats, and that was third among 2020 NBA draft prospects in terms of finishing at the rim. He's got great speed for his size. Really tough for defenders to stay attached to him. He can beat guys to the spot on the backside. He's great out in transition. Speed and ability to finish, create opportunities there. Not just a pick and dive guy, fluid enough that he can shoot it off the catch. He's good at off the pick and pop. His catch and shoot he had a 58.1% effective field goal percentage, has good touch, clean release. Should translate into a good start, a good baseline to start to improve it at the NBA level. Questions for this guy come on defense, man. He was one of, to use Rabbi's favorite terms, serviceable. He struggled in pick and roll in terms of ability to contain and recover, any sort of advanced exchange, such as, flipping a screen or running a side dribble handoff. He led to breakdowns in his defense. He was rarely in a defensive stance. Got to work on fundamental defensive balance in order to be more quickly to recover. Bit of a high center of gravity, gives him longer legs, does longer loads in a changing direction, tight hips, which you don't want it in a cornerback and you don't want it in a guy playing defense in the NBA, which means he struggles to cut off drives to the bucket, which means he can get blown by. Has a tendency to try for the big block to recover from that, as opposed to staying solid in front. Don't know if he can consistently hold down the 5 spot, even in small ball scenarios. Where his offensive game may fit best, but he may not be able to protect the rim and rebound. You play him at the 4. Is he good enough to defend solidly away from the basket? Because as we know, stretch 4s, proliferate the NBA. Maybe better to hide him there, but in today's NBA, which is as mismatch conscious these days as you get, Can you really hide someone? We're going to see. Look, I understand. Look, the Knicks can probably get – I wanted them to take a combo guard like Devin Vassell, who I talked about in the last show, who went to the Spurs at number 11. Great pick, Pop. I don't – look, they didn't expect Toppin to be there at number 8, so once he was there, yeah, you had to grab him. The fact that he's coming home makes for a nice storyline, but it's a question of whether or not, they can develop him, and the Knicks so far have not shown much in the way of developing these guys, even though their mantra has been player development. This is a guy who has a good base. It's a question of whether or not they can bring him to the next level. I like the pick. Let's just see if let's just hope the Knicks don't screw it up like they've screwed up every other guy who needed some development at the NBA level.
You know what? I love Obi Toppin. I just don't like him for the Knicks. I feel like the Knicks should have addressed their needs as shooting and point guard. And the guy I thought they should have gotten was Tyrese Halliburton from Iowa State. I mean, you look at this guy. He played in the FIBA U19 World Cup this past summer. He led to a gold medal. He's good size, 15 points a game at Iowa State last year. Good size for a point guard, 6'5", 6'7" wingspan, that allows him to defend either guard position, which is something the Knicks have really struggled on. Perimeter defense in recent years. Has one of the highest basketball IQs. I think that was the most impressive thing that stood out to a lot of league executives that interviewed him, obviously, before the draft, is that he has a very high basketball IQ, career 43% three-point shooter, 78% free throw shooter. And also he's a point guard who can play both positions, but also when you think about you have a ball-dominant shooting guard / point guard and R.J. Barrett already in the backcourt, it probably would have been a good idea to have someone that could play off of him and play without the basketball, which is one of Halliburton's best strengths, the fact that he can play without the basketball. I feel like the Knicks really look. I get that they had with Toppin being there, they kind of had to get him. He was obviously the big name that was still available, but the fact that he was not a top 5 pick does leave you some question marks, and maybe it is because of the past his struggles on defense. I mean, I had comparisons. I'm watching the broadcast to Amari Stoudemire and his explosiveness in the front court, and a great pick and pop guy, but Amari Stoudemire, as you all know, even in his heyday in Phoenix, struggled defensively, and that was one of his drawbacks before the injuries kicked in. So I just feel like the Knicks missed an opportunity to really show up a weakness that has been there for the last several years. I mean, you have to go back to Raymond Felton for the last time the Knicks had a reliable point guard that they could depend on night in and night out. I mean, they tried with Frank Ntilikina. They still haven't figured out what exactly he is as far as is he a guard, is he a small forward. Dennis Smith Jr. has had his struggles. They wanted to give him a shot. He's really more of a 2 masquerading as a point guard. So the Knicks have a lot of question marks on their roster as it is. I feel like Halliburton would have showed up one of those question marks with a point guard who could come in right away, and also a high IQ guy. That's something that Tom Thibodeau always praised about a former point guard of his and Derrick Rose back in Chicago. So I feel like it's a good pick. I think Toppin's a great kid, a great player, and maybe he will work out for the Knicks depending on what they do with the forwards they already have on the roster as far as player development. But Halliburton is a guy that I really feel like the Knicks kind of let slip away. He went to Sacramento with the number 12 pick, so it's only a matter of time to see what happens.
Anthony, does your opinion change when you realize this is exactly what Stephen A. Smith said about the pick on Twitter earlier tonight?
Yo, I mean, you know what?
You're great.
It's 2020, so agreeing with Stephen A. Smith shouldn't even be a shock to anyone. It happens, but yeah, I thought the Knicks should have gotten Halliburton. I think he's a guy that really would have given the Knicks a great 1-2 combination in the backcourt with R.J. Barrett. Barrett with another season under his belt, a little more, with some room to grow.
Absolutely. I think so. One of the funny things is me and you are in agreement, Anthony. Although Toppin kind of fits my type of player who I like, who's had experience in the NBA, or has had experience in the NCAA, has a lot of experience playing in big-time moments and big-time games, although some people would say the Atlantic 10 really isn't a big-time situation. I disagree.
I disagree with that too.
Yeah. However, I do think that he's such an old-school player, and I like how you mentioned Amari Stoudemire, because he can't really shoot from three. You're going to probably play him at the 5 a little more than you probably would like to. And again, I don't know if he's going to be a 20 to 25 minute guy in year one. And it's funny, 5 to 12 in this draft is almost interchangeable, in my opinion. You could have easily gotten Halliburton at number 8. He fell to 12, but it's not really too much of a fall. But Toppin is the biggest name guy out there, and I think the Knicks also wanted a name with that number 8 pick, and I think you have the most potential out there. If you look, a lot of players who have had some success, at least recently, from the NBA draft have come from big name schools or were big players. Trae Young was a player of the year. Trae Young is a pretty damn good pro. Buddy Hield was a player of the year. Buddy Hield is a pretty good pro who is going to be a very, very good role player, even though he's going to change from team to team most of the time. But I do think this is, again, Jay goes good, Anthony goes bad. I'm like the Goldilocks, and I'm just going to go right in the middle because I have one of every little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, look, my only issue, I agree with Anthony. I understand why he's talking about they should have gone with somebody who is more of a guard. Here's my thing with Halliburton, Anthony. He's a combo guard. He's not a pure point guard. And the Knicks have run into trouble so far trying to take guys who are probably more combo guard than pure lead guard and trying to put them into the lead guard role. It has not worked out so far. So to my way of thinking, better to take a guy who probably has more of a defined role, where his role in college can more possibly equate to the potential role he has in the NBA, than trying to take another guy who was more of a combo guard or projects to be more of a combo guard and putting that in place. They need an actual point guard, somebody who knows how to initiate.
There's not a lot of them in these drafts.
There's not a lot of them. And the thing is to me, Halliburton does not fit that role. And if that's what you're looking for, you're not looking for somebody to be depth at that position at the 8 pick. So I understand where you're coming from. I agree with the profile. Don't necessarily agree with that as the choice at 8. If you tell me that a guy like that with that profile is available at 23, hell yeah, grab him.
Yeah, but here's the thing, too. The Knicks already have kind of a combo guard who plays point guard already.
That's why you don't want to take another one.
Because here's the thing. R.J. Barrett is a ball-dominant player who needs the ball in his hands. Halliburton's biggest strength, even though he's a combo guard, is he can also play off the ball. That's why I feel like he would be a great combination with R.J. Barrett. A guy
I get you, but the only reason R.J. Barrett was so ball dominant last year and had such a high usage rate is because the Knicks didn't have anybody else they trusted to put the ball in their hands. That's why. In a normal situation, like he had at Duke, where he had an actual point guard to initiate offense and set him up, he won't be in that position as a Knick. And ultimately, that's what you want. You don't want him in that position as a Knick.
Yeah, but the irony is the Knicks offense scored 5 more points a game last season when Barrett started as a point guard, which is the irony.
Barrett is an instant offensive guy.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean that's the best role in the future for Barrett or for the Knicks. Rabbi?
We'll see. And just to go back to our little changes department, Sean Livingston did not go to college. Sean Livingston came straight out of high school, never went to LSU.
Did he come straight out of high school? I could have sworn he went to LSU for a year.
He went straight out of high school. That was when the
Okay, my bad.
All right, moving on. We're going to go in chronological order because the Knicks are soon to be back up, and we'll criticize their 23rd pick in just a moment, but let's go to the Nets at number 19. Now, I'm sure the Nets' biggest news, and the only time that they've been mentioned in any rumors this week in any way, shape, or form, is with this pick that they have at number 19. Nothing else. Let's not even think about anything else. Let's just focus on the pick that they just made here. Nothing on James Harden? Oh, good God. We'll talk about that in our final segment. So the pick is Sadiq Bey, power forward from Villanova.
Not so much power forward, Rabbi.
It's what I have on the damn screen. I'm reading it. You can correct me in a second. Anthony, go ahead.
You know what? I think they should have went with R.J. Hampton. I mean, he was literally. By the way, Hampton's still available. It's kind of a surprise. I thought even the Nets or someone in front of Brooklyn would have taken him by now. But look, I think R.J. Hampton gives him another explosive wing, another versatile combo guard that the Nets definitely can use right now. They can use an outside shooter, which he is. He's definitely good outside shooter, athleticism. His fundamentals do need to take on some work, but I feel like he would have been great with the Nets considering they have Kevin Durant, they have Kyrie. They have enough guys on that team that's under the spotlight. So Hampton would have and Hampton being able to play under Steve Nash would have had the time to develop his game a little bit more. But I mean, the explosiveness. You think about this. The Nets right now are a very gifted athletic team when you think about who they have in their roster: Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, and even Spencer Dinwiddie. But you have to take into consideration, and this is why I thought R.J. Hampton would have been a great fit. Think about the injuries and the amount of missed games that the Nets had last season with just Kyrie Irving alone. And he has a knack for missing his traditional 20 to 25 games per season because of a variety of injuries. And you also have Kevin Durant, who is coming off a serious Achilles injury that could be career-altering depending on how he comes back. But also all these trade rumors. I mean, if you want to gut your team or you're going to bring James Harden in, it would be good to add some kind of depth out in the perimeter. I feel like R.J. Hampton was a great opportunity. Steve Bay is more of a a power forward? I need a confirmation. So
ESPN lists him as a power forward. He can be a shooting forward, so he can mix himself as he's another combo. He's another combo. If you do this on the fly, you read what the fucking ESPN people say over here.
You read the draft guide I sent you. Come on.
I don't listen to the draft guide when I'm watching this and doing this. So it's a combo guard. Move on.
Yeah, but he's a combo guard. I feel like his game is just like you only have a Jared Allen and you only have DeAndre Jordan on your team already. Like bigs who just clog the paint. You need spacing if you want to have Kevin Durant and ball dominant Kyrie Irving on your team, and also you may lose Joe Harris the free agency. So you miss out on versatility, and you may be lacking in outside shooting, and that's going to be a problem because we know Kyrie Irving dominates the ball a lot. Kevin Durant, his pass has gotten better, but that's the luxury of playing with Steph Curry, who's a more than reliable guy who can step out of the spotlight for a few possessions. So it's going to be a little different in Brooklyn. And also, we don't know what kind of offense Steve Nash is going to run. I mean, he may not run the offense that he played in Selden and Phoenix. So we don't know for sure how that would fit. But I think R.J. Hampton's versatility, his outside shooter, would be a great fit for Brooklyn.
All right. I'm gonna settle this once and for all, okay? Here's the way he is labeled by NBA draft people, guys, player personnel people. They say, look, they call him as a real shooter with positional size. He's 6'8" with a 7-foot wingspan, which means he can play across the front court and as a wing. He's 6'8", okay? With his wingspan, you can put him at the 3. You can put him at the 4. Probably not going to play the 5, but you can.
Not a lot of people can play the 5.
You can play him potentially at the 2, depending on the type of lineup you put out there. He's physical. I like this pick. I understand where you're coming from, Anthony. But in terms of what I think the Nets need, this is the right pick. This is a guy who's physical, uses his size well. He is an elite shooter from standstill. And what's the biggest standstill shot in the NBA? Corner 3. He's going to be perfect for this. Hit over 45% of his attempts from 3. Good volume. Hit shot directly off the catch. Coming off the catch, this is what gets me. Hit shots at an obscene 72.4 effective field goal percentage. Among the 425 players in college basketball who took at least 100 catch-and-shoot jumpers in the half court, Bey was third best overall, tops among high major players. Essentially he plays professionally. Like most Villanova prospects, doesn't play like a goofball out there. He's smart, knows how to move, a good defender, can switch in within a scheme. Would have been all defense in the Big East if such a thing existed. It doesn't. As we said, he can switch, and in Villanova's scheme, did a good job of containing and corralling ball handlers with his length. So you got a guy who can play multiple positions at his size. Good team defender, always communicating, right place rotationally, consistently closes out in good position, allowing him to contest shots and cut off drives. Again, this is a very typical Villanova guy. NBA coaches are going to trust this guy from day one to execute at a good level. Is he going to be a starter? No, on this team, no, he's not. But he's going to be a role player who's tailor-made for the current, version of the NBA we're in right now. They're looking for low usage fourth floor spacers who can do a little bit more than that. You can't really label him as a 3-and-D because he has more skills than that. Comfortable at handling the ball, is going to make good passes. He's fundamentally sound, high-level shooter off the catch. You leave him open, he's going to kill you. And you love the fact that he can take a guard multiple positions. Look, this is a guy who, if he's going to stick around as a solid 6-7 guy in the rotation for a decade, could start occasionally, but he's going to be a guy that the Nets can plug into the rotation from day one. He's going to do the right thing in all the spots he's going to be in. I like this pick for what the Nets need. And you're right, Anthony. If they don't sign Joe Harris, they need somebody who can at least partially fill that role as a shooter.
I don't think that anybody after the 14th or 15th pick of this draft is a role player for a decade. I think you're almost rolling the dice. I do like the fact that he has the Villanova pedigree, which is really going.
That's why I think he can be a role player for the next decade.
You could talk about the guy who I think is still on the Bucks, Dante DiVincenzo. Yeah, he's still on the Bucks, and we'll get to that in just a moment. I think he's
in subsequent segments.
Yes, but I think this is a decent pick. I like Trey Jones in this spot for at number 19. I didn't want to mention it because I have a feeling one of the two players we just mentioned is about to go here to the Knicks at 23. But I think this is a pretty good pick for the Nets. I don't think you could have really gone wrong. There's a lot of different talent in this spot, but you look at the numbers really quick. I don't know if you just mentioned it, 16.1 points a game, 4.7 rebounds, 2.4 assists. He played almost 34 minutes a game, made a big leap during his sophomore season when he truly became the star of Villanova. Jay Wright is a very good coach, has almost NBA potential. Can you tell I'm stalling before we get to the Knicks pick here at 23?
Look, Rabbi, you don't have to stall. I mean, look, we're saying all the right things, and there is something to look. Rabbi, you and I have always been in agreement on this. We like guys who come out of named schools that play.
I love it. I love that.
Know how to prepare guys to play at the next level. The fact that this guy, is not a one and done, to me is a good thing. I've never been in favor of that. And that's why, when you're in a draft, and we all know this is more of a tier 2, tier 3 type of player draft than it is true tier 1. When you're drafting at 19, you're not expecting to get a guy who's going to be a starter and, be potential, guy you can see being, a frontline starter for the next decade. You're not expecting that. If you get a guy like this falls to you in this position, you say thank you very much, especially when it's the only pick you have and it fills a need right now and potentially, helps you if you lose one of your key guys down the road in free agency. I'm just saying, I can't fault the pick.
All right, guys, let's move on. And God damn it, was I wrong. We kind of alluded to it last week, but the Knicks actually improved their second draft position today after giving up their second round pick to the Jazz to swap first round picks. So, in my best Casey Kasem voice, the Knicks now move up 4 spots with the bullet up to number 23. Thank you, Marcus Morris, for this pick to begin with. And the pick being, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to say this correctly, Leandro Balmero, shooting guard,
Ooh.
Argentina. So we
Well, that's
don't even
interesting.
go college, we go international. Let's start.
I smell draft and stash.
Yeah, that's before we get to those highlights, which looks like they're in slow motion. It's some weird video. Let's go to Jay.
You know what? I mean, look, you guys know me. I'm not a big fan of, everybody, talks about how much more international the NBA has become. And honestly, you know what? For the most part, I don't have a problem with it. But here's the thing. With me, international players are so hit or miss.
Oh, yeah.
Solely, and that's the thing, is you don't know what you're getting with a lot of these guys. I don't know what the Knicks are getting with these guys, which is why I say, this is a guy who I can say being, a draft and stash. 6'7" wing out of Argentina, but I mean, here's the thing. This is a guy who's a little out of control, played himself out of FC Barcelona's rotation. You're looking at him and you're hoping that, the potential and the promise, meets what you hope he might make it down the road. One of the guys who writes for The Athletic said, squint hard enough and you could see Manu Ginobili. But I mean, right now that could be, we don't know. And that's the big thing about this guy, is you just don't know. Handsy defender, had a high steal rate in limited minutes, can, snap off one-handed passes from the dribble on either side. So he's got some flash there. But I mean, that's the thing is, the reality of his present, his shooting and overall decision-making, if they're not up to par for Europe's top-level league, what the heck is he going to do in the NBA? He doesn't really pass the eye test. Not much in the way of elevation around the rim. Look, like I said, to me, this reeks of a draft and stash. You hope he sticks with FC Barcelona, plays himself back into the rotation, getting, the 20 to 25 minutes that these guys, kind of get. And maybe he becomes a couple of years down the road, he becomes, again, a serviceable NBA player. And this has been my problem. I have never been a fan of draft and stash. You're going to go use a pick on a guy who plays overseas and you're going to stash him. Why are you wasting that? Use the pick on a guy who you've seen plenty of tape on and is more likely to be able to play at the NBA level now than, cross your fingers and hope that, 2 years or 3 years from now, this guy is ready to make the jump from the EuroLeague over to the NBA. I'm not a fan of this pick because I'm not a fan of this type of pick.
You know what? I think the criticism with this pick is the fact that the Knicks traded up in the draft for this pick.
Yeah, right. Even more so, like, makes you go, what?
I'm quite sure. This kid would have been available at 27 if they still pat. But here's the thing. I felt like this was the pick they should have went with a big. And I talked about Isaiah Stewart in the last show. A big with a high motor, but Trey Jones, an actual true point guard, you mentioned Jay, was still on the board. And the Knicks had an opportunity to kind of get him, and they passed up on it. I mean, for the Knicks' sake, they better hope that they have drafted the next Manu Ginobili, which is, hey, look, he's an international grade and possible Hall of Famer, but that's a tall order. I mean, one of the weaknesses on him was the fact that he's really small. Like, he doesn't have an NBA frame right now, and that's a concern, because if he doesn't have the physical strength to play in the NBA, he's gonna get dinged around quite a bit. And you gotta this is a league on defense where everyone switches on screen and rolls, and you're playing against multiple guys, so you have to defend. How's that going to look if he gets, unfortunately, get on a switch with a guy like LeBron, of all people, like, if he has to eat up minutes? So, look, I know everybody's kind of putting up looks like, what's going on?
I'll tell you why in a second.
Yeah, but right now, I think that the Knicks missed out on an opportunity to really, again, if you want to get Toppin at the 8th pick, this was a pick you should have addressed that need a point guard. I think it would have been a great night for the Knicks draft-wise, if they would have taken a point guard, they had Trey Jones right there that was available. They didn't get him. They had Harrisburg early in the pick in the draft. They went with Toppin. Like I said, it's the Knicks, so every time they do something, it's kind of like a cause for pause. But I'm not a fan of this pick.
Every time the bell rings, Leon and the Knicks or James Dolan makes a bad draft pick. That's pretty obvious. By the way, why I got really pissed off is the guy who I thought would have been the guy who I thought was going to get picked by the Knicks literally just went one pick after to the Bucks, which will be a Pelican, R.J. Hampton.
R.J. Hampton, yes.
And that would have been a pure point guard. And R.J. Hampton can be the heir apparent to Jrue Holiday, which is the perfect transition to segment number 5 of the show. Let's talk about that thing that makes the NBA go when they're not on the court and provides the big bucks to try to steal the headlines from the NFL, although they're playing now. So that doesn't really help out too much. It's time for some NBA Hot Stove. The moratorium for trades was lifted on Monday, and we're going to focus on 3 teams who made a total of, it says 4 moves, but that's back down to 3 moves. We'll talk about that in just a second, as teams are trying to stay a champion, trying to become a champion, or trying to become a contender. Let's start with the team that's trying to stay a champion. Jay, LeBron, AD, and the member of the Big 3?
This is, I got to tell you, this is one of those trades where both teams get what they want and or need out of the deal. Lakers have a need for a legit, consistent number 3 player behind LeBron and AD. It's a fact that we've beaten to death. Rabbi just gave the latest, sentence there on previous shows. The Thunder, they need help with perimeter defense, and a player who can knock down a 3 and would be a good trade chip down the road to get them, a player or draft capital. You talk about Schroeder, who averaged 18.9 points a game off the bench. Okay, I mean, he automatically becomes that number 3 guy for LA. He can score at all 3 levels, on drives, mid-range, beyond the arc. Made 157 shots in the restricted area last season. For comparison, can take KCP, only 95. Schroeder attacks the paint, also pairs that well with an effective stop and pop mid-range. 117 of 243 on 2-point jumpers last season, a respectable 48.7%. Efficient enough to keep defenses honest while not sucking in an offense drive. He loves the 15 to 19 foot range. Made 71 jumpers from that area last year, tied with Kawhi for 8th most in the NBA. But the thing that the Lakers need and what they're going to get is, he's a capable 3-point shooter, to a team that's in desperate need of some supplementary shooting. Didn't bite them, in the butt in the playoffs, mostly because KCP got hot at the right time. But look, we all know it. The Lakers were a bottom 10 collective 3-point shooting team last season, allowing defenses to collapse on James and Davis and bog down the offensive flow for stretches. We called this out multiple times when we were discussing the NBA playoff. Schroeder's still in his prime at 27, and he's more potent and capable than anybody else they have on the roster right now. 125 threes made last season, more than every Laker except James, who led his team in threes. First time LeBron's ever led his team in threes since 2008. That's a glaring sign of lacking spacer, guys who can, space the floor around him. Schroeder hit from, at 38.5%, equal to KCP, who led the Lakers, and better than Danny Green, the guy he's replacing. Look, he's capable of running an offense for stretches that LeBron sits. The guy can create. Average 4 assists a game on a team that included CP3. He'll fit in just as nice playing alongside James, giving the King another option for his kickouts when he drives to the hole. 96 of Schroeder's 125 made threes were catch and shoot, done with a little over 41% accuracy. When he's left open, as he was on 60, he hit 66 of 139. That's almost 45%. Just as dangerous or more so, from deep from Green, as I said, for a team that's looking to make the most of what could be LeBron's last championship window. It's a great deal. On the Thunder side, this is a hell of a deal for OKC general manager Sam Presti. He flipped Schroeder, who's on an expiring contract, for another first-round pick and a veteran he can flip before the deadline for even more trade assets. Wait, I'm getting there. The acquisition of Danny Green gave OKC, for the short time he was there, a much better 3-and-D wing or would have been, next to whoever was going to wind up starting at point guard.
Great editing there, Jay.
Yeah, look, I wrote it before it all went down. And this is what Danny Green would have given them. Better player, and that's the thing. When Presti made this deal, he was looking as much as what Danny Green would have given them had he stayed there during the course of the season and what he could be in terms of being able to flip him down the road. And like mere hours after I wrote this, and with the ink on the original trade barely dry, Sam Wheeler, dealer Presti, went and flipped Green to the Sixers, who are one of the teams who, were being bandied about is, can you see him being flipped to Philly or Milwaukee or Atlanta at the trade deadline? According to Woj, the Sixers sent Al Horford, who the Sixers needed to move, yes, and a lightly protected first-round pick from the 2025 NBA draft and pick number 34 in this one, to OKC in exchange for Green and shooting guard Terrence Ferguson. In addition to the 2 picks, the Thunders are also going to get Serbian point guard Vasily Micic, who is currently playing overseas. Again, stash, draft in stash. So not only did Presti make a good deal with the Lakers, he made a secondary good deal like a week later with Philly. I mean, it doesn't get any better for the Thunder, who essentially got exactly what they expected to get from Green, even though he never set foot on the floor for them. Got to say, Philly didn't do too bad in this deal either, because Horford needed to go, and they needed a 3-and-D guy who can actually knock down the 3 in Danny Green. So I didn't expect I didn't see Presti flipping him that quick, but you know what? You can't really be surprised. This is how he rolls. The guy made 2 good deals using 1 player. Got to hand it to him.
I can't wait for the 2025 draft when it's going to be first pick Thunder, second pick Thunder, third pick Thunder, fourth pick Thunder.
Right?
I swear to God, if they own, I don't remember, they own something like 16 to 20 first-round picks in their possession right now.
It's insane.
And
it's
one
insane.
of the players they got rid of is Paul George, who I think the Clippers would easily take back right now. All right. Here's a reference that Jay will get and Anthony won't get, so I'm sorry this is Anthony's. It's the House of the Rising Suns right now for Phoenix, a team that's about to try to make their way back into the playoffs, Anthony.
Yes, they got Chris Paul as the newest member of the Phoenix Suns. It's a great trade for both teams. I mean, you look at it like this: the Suns get a guy, a veteran, and Chris Paul. They can pair with Devin Booker. A team on the rise. So you think about how they ended the bubble. They literally went 8-0 and missed the playoffs by what, a half a game. They missed getting into that play-in tournament. So they have the pieces there. You think about DeAndre Ayton being there as well. This is a team that could push for a playoff spot, and maybe also someone that could convince Devin Booker to stay rather than leave Phoenix, because obviously there was grumblings earlier last season about Devin Booker being a great player, kind of wasted away in the Arizona desert. For OKC, I'll tell you what, Sam Presti's becoming the Thanos of draft picks, because he literally no one has flipped players for draft picks better than Sam Presti. You think about when he did, Seattle, OKC, the early days when they were transition from the Seattle Sonics to the Oklahoma City Thunder, and obviously getting a draft pick in a trade that turned out to be Serge Ibaka, who helped them get to the finals in 2012. And then you think about this, he basically moved. Obviously, he got the draft picks from Paul George, which looks more and more like the Thunder won that trade in a heartbeat. But also, he gets more draft picks, and also he sent Ricky Rubio to Minnesota. Like, this talks him going to send him Ricky Rubio to Minnesota for more draft picks.
Back to Minnesota.
So, yeah,
it's a long way around.
So Rubio's come full circle pretty much. But Oklahoma City, you know what? If they are a team, they realize that they are rebuilding. They have been ever since they moved Russell Westbrook, but I guess draft picks, and more and more. And I think they realized last year that Chris Paul playing to all-star level at 35 was not going to happen again. Moving Dennis Schroeder to the Lakers was a great move as well. Sam Presti just been doing a tremendous job and getting draft capital back to rebuild this organization top to bottom. I mean, now what I say, in the next few years, they may literally be drafting the first 7 picks in an NBA
really
draft coming up, because they literally have. It said they have every team's draft pick at some point in the last 5 years.
And the good thing is that, you know what, all of those draft picks are going to become one of 2 things. They're either going to be draft picks that he's going to utilize in years where they think they have, you know, where the draft is solid. But he's also going to be able to use them as the team starts to improve. He's going to flip those to other teams to get guys that he needs, that he feels will take them to the next level. This is a guy who knows how to do his job. And you know what? Honestly, freed from having to deal with contracts like Chris Paul's or like, you know, Kevin Durant's or Russell Westbrook's. He's got a lot more flexibility to rebuild this team, and he may rebuild it faster than a lot of people may think.
And also you think about with the Suns is that they traded for Chris Paul, but it's a high reward, low risk deal for them, because his contract does come off the books 2023, where Ayton and then some of the younger players would be at the end of the rookie deal. So that whether it works out or not, they still have some cap flexibility the next few years.
You know, that they did give up a first-round pick for somebody who is about to go into free agency, so not necessarily a low-risk situation. I think the whole idea is to keep Devin Booker in Phoenix, though, and this might be the best way to do it. And if he makes the leap, they're going to probably take what the Thunder's position was last year in that playoff ring, which is in about the 4-5 range, and could make it to the second round. Who knows? Yep. West is kind of a little bit of an interesting mix right now. We'll get to that.
A crapshoot, yeah.
Big time crapshoot. All right. So the Bucks were the third big wheelers and dealers of this week, and they wanted to get a third scorer. They really wanted to get somebody who can take a little bit pressure off of Giannis and Chris Middleton and really be an option. And they think they got it with Jrue Holiday of the New Orleans Pelicans. They gave up a king's ransom for him here. They gave up Eric Bledsoe and George Hill, 2 people who were serviceable definitely for the Bucks and big-time rotation guys, starters even. And they might be flipped again because this is a Sam Presti-like haul that they got in picks from the Bucks. This is almost – David Griffin did a damn good job with this. So New Orleans is getting from the Bucks the 2020 first-round pick. Wasn't the Bucks to begin with. This is the one that was in the Brogdon deal last year. They have a right to swap in 2024 and 2026 and get an unprotected first. And who knows if Giannis leaves, where the Bucks could be at that point. In 2025 and 2027, what the hell? This is a gamble. Jrue Holiday is a very good player and is definitely one of the top 30 to 40 players in the league. He is, though, 30. He is an old 30 because he's been playing in the league since he was 19. His usage is high. I think he's a very good pick, and I think this is telling Giannis, listen, we know we're going to make deals. We know we need to improve. We want to make sure we are a championship-level team. This helps. This really does help. You're going to have somebody who can get you maybe anywhere from 18 to 20 points a game every night and is a very good guy in clutch time. That being said, though, if Giannis is not signing the Supermax before the beginning of the season, which I think the Bucks are hoping to plan on so we don't have to go through this almost LeBron-like 2010 situation again, if that's not happening and you're basically risking 5 picks for this man and this fails, you are in hell for years and years and years to come. It is the ultimate gamble, and it might win them a championship. They are the second betting favorite right now behind the Lakers. But again, it doesn't work. You are screwed. But that's not all. There's more. They were doing a sign-in trade for King's star, who was kind of falling out of rotation, Bogdan Bogdanovic, who can give them another 15 to 16 points a game. But we're not going to talk about that right now because it looks like this was a Bogdanovic situation where he didn't really agree to this deal, and The big part of a sign and trade is you need to sign the player and trade the player before you could actually go. Some people think it might be something to get around the tampering policies, but it looks like Bogdanovich really wants to test the waters in restricted free agency. And boy, what an awkward situation that is for the Kings. But it does show that this team the Bucks want scoring and want scoring at all costs. They want to have a starting five on the floor that can give them 80 to 90 points without even going to the bench.
Rabbi, I got to tell you, I was surprised when, I got the alert from The Athletic that this had happened, and I sent it to you guys. Think about what the Bucks stood to gain if they actually were able to pull this off. I mean, Bogdanovich is a guy who averaged 9 threes per 36 minutes last year for the Kings, shot 37% from deep. And on catch and shoot three-pointers, that jumps up to almost 41%. He is the type of shooter that they need to, pair with a guy like Giannis, especially when you consider the other guys, that they acquired. If they can manage to pull that off, it's going to make that, make their roster even better. But I got to tell you, I have always been a Drew Holiday fan, and getting him is huge for them. Look, I know they liked George Hill and they liked, some of these other guys. Drew Holiday is a guy who can run the point at 6'5", can defend multiple positions. He is a proven NBA scorer. And you know what? Considering how inconsistent Middleton was at times last year, had given them another guy who you can pencil in for 17 to 20 points a game every night is big. Even if they don't get Bogdanovich, if they do, that's gravy and just, keeps them at the level they expect to be at. But Holiday getting him, that is huge. Do not underestimate just how big a get that was for John Horst, the Bucks GM.
I don't underestimate it at all, but like I said, you fail with this, your ship be sinking. And I think Holiday is a big deal, but I don't know if Holiday is going to put them completely over the top. They need a little bit more, and I think also it's going to require some more improvement from Giannis from being a 33-minute a game guy in the playoffs to being almost the Superman that he is during the regular season, going 40 to 40.
Well, Rabbi, as you put it, that little bit more that they need would have been Bogdanovich.
Well, they could still get him. This is not a lost cause.
It's not lost, but I'm just saying is that if you're talking about that little bit of extra that they need, I think Bogdanovich could be that little bit of extra. And, then you see how their draft and everything else shakes out.
Yep. All right. Let's move on. And let's go from a team that is about role players to a team that was about stars. Finally, in news that's completely shocking. Not really. The Russell Westbrook James Harden experiment that made some people maybe go out on the biggest of limbs over a year ago and pick the Houston Rockets to make the NBA championship. That ended in the bubble with yet another conference semifinal failure. Looks like it's over. One or both of these stars are about to go to other teams. Houston, we have a problem. We have less of a problem. We have more of a problem. We have the same problem. Anthony, let's talk about the most failed NBA marriage this side of Kardashian and insert NBA player here.
You know what? I feel like this was just like a last gasp. It was a failed Hail Mary for Daryl Morey. You think about the parents he's trying to put together in Houston. James Harden, Dwight Howard, James Harden, and Chris Paul, which was literally one game away from getting to the NBA Finals. But Morey, you know what? It was funny because it wasn't just this combination that failed miserably. It was the entire roster. I mean, they literally just went away from having a big. Like everyone, there was literally no 7-footer on that roster by the time the playoffs started, and we saw how that caught up to the Rockets. I mean, Westbrook just never really felt comfortable without having a ball in his hands so much because he's so used to having a ball in his hands. He's very ball dominant, and it had to be maddening to him to watch James Harden dribble for about 15, 16 seconds off a shot clock before he decided to do something with the ball. But you look at the Rockets as a whole, like the whole roster, top to bottom last year was a flawed analytic system by Morey and the Rockets, just trying to make it work. Kind of like I said, it was it was the last gasp, because you think about how the Rockets over the last decade have really gone from a team that was kind of an also-ran to not quite there. They've been to the conference finals a few times, just couldn't quite get over the hump. And bringing in Westbrook was kind of just like, it was a desperation move. I even called it a year ago when the trade was made. And there was issues with Chris Paul and James Harden and there was rumors with that marriage going awry, which led to the trade in the first place. And you know what? It has to. I think the Rockets at this point need to start figuring out what they need to do, because they're trying to make it work with Westbrook and James Harden, but it's clear that neither player is happy right now. And clearly, look, the Rockets are in a position where they don't have to trade anybody. I mean, you got these guys in the contract. They're like, either like you like it's the old expression. You get nothing, you like it. Like, you don't have to trade somebody because they just want to be traded. But like I said, it was a desperate move that just did not play out. I still feel like one of these guys are going to be traded before the season actually begins. It's just a matter of whether the right trade offer comes to mind for the Houston Rockets. I know there was a lot of talk about James Harden coming to Brooklyn, but even with half a roster and maybe 10% of the Barclays Center property, wouldn't compensate for James Harden contract. He turned down a $50 million extension. He's still on a $140 million deal. So it's not like James Harden is going to cry broke because he turned down a $50 million a year, 2-year extension. Let's get something get that out of the way. He still get plenty of money on and off the court. It's just right now the Rockets, you really have to blow them away, give them a lot of draft capital, maybe some really good young players, pieces to kind of rebuild. But right now, I don't think the Rockets has had that come across the radar right now.
Anthony, I think James Harden might be owning your apartment in the near future.
And look, my mother would be
Your mother would be very happy.
My mother would be absolutely thrilled to have her favorite player living playing 100 feet away from home at the Barclays Center. But being realistic about it, I don't think that's going to happen. If it does, hey, it would be another interesting story for a Brooklyn Nets team that is starting to become a bigger soap opera before anybody takes the court going into next season.
Yep. Jay, are you willing to get a little bit uncomfortable?
No, but the Rockets are. You know what? Here's the thing, guys. We did a Love It or Leave It segment on our Dog Days of August show back in 2019, which is a show that was just the three of us in the studio. And this is what I said back then. I actually went and looked this back up. I got to leave it. Can being friends help these two share the ball? We're talking about two of the top 10 usage players in the NBA, Harden being number one at almost 41%. Will he accept playing more off the ball to allow Westbrook to run the offense? Will Westbrook accept the same? Seemed to do this to an extent last season with George Paul, Paul George led the Thunder, averaging 28 a game, Westbrook only 23. D'Antoni's offense would seem to be a good fit for how Westbrook plays or would like to play, just like he did with Harden and CP3. D'Antoni will, at least during the regular season, stagger the minutes of his two stars, so they have plenty of opportunity to be their ball-dominant selves. Where I get to leaving it is the playoffs. Yes, these two can produce a 50-win team and possibly a top 4 seed, which they kind of did. But the question for me is whether or not they can coexist for extended minutes, especially come crunch time in a playoff series. Will they revert to type and play hero ball at the expense of the other and the team? If so, then this experiment implodes. It'll be fascinating to watch, like a train wreck. That's what I said last August. And the train wreck metaphor did prove to be apt, guys. The Rockets barely made it into the conference finals and were promptly dispatched by the Lakers. It's ironic that both players now won out of Houston, neither one wanting to stick around and see how the team is built around them under a new GM and a new head coach. Here's the problem as I see it, guys. Neither one of these guys can go back to being a Robin. They've been Batman for far too long. The only place they were comfortable playing second and third fiddle was in OKC, where everyone knew KD was the man. Westbrook and Harden were young, yet to make names for themselves. They were comfortable in their supporting role. We are long past those days, guys. look, Westbrook needs to be on a team where he's the alpha again, as does Harden. So this stuff about Harden wanting to go to the Nets strikes me as strange. Why would the Beard want to go to a team that already has two guys who are going to struggle to share the basketball? It'd be one thing if it was just KD over there, but it's KD and Kyrie had issues sharing the ball with LeBron. Harden and Westbrook are also under contract for 3 more years, so the Rockets are under zero obligation to trade either one of them, and with what they can and should demand from other teams as trade compensation, they don't have to be in any rush to do so. And yes, Rabbi, they are prepared to sit through an uncomfortable season or even multiple seasons. They are well aware of how much Harden now wants to leave, but it's going to take a substantial package and most likely an impact player. Is there such a package out there that'll get him to agree to a trade? Who knows? But I doubt the Nets or even the Sixers, another team rumored to be interested in trading for Harden, will have what it takes, though, that could change the longer other teams wait. The theory is you wait Houston out long enough, maybe they'll get desperate enough to want to get rid of these guys, when there gets to be a breaking point. But getting anything approaching fair value for Harden's not going to be easy. There's an executive, an NBA executive whose team was not involved with any of the trade talks said, quote, when you're trading one of the top 5 players in the world with 3 years left on his contract, anything you get is underwhelming, and you are losing the deal. As far as Westbrook goes, he told Rockets officials that he's been uneasy about the team's accountability, meaning lack thereof, and culture, and wants to join a team where he can go back to the kind of role he had in OKC. According to sources, Westbrook has made it known for quite some time now that he would like to see significant changes to the Rockets' culture, specifically his desire for more team-wide accountability, discipline, and structure that, were the focus of his talks with team officials. Throughout the season, he was a consistent presence who kept Harden accountable, and the two close friends had, quote, several verbal exchanges that sources described as tense but needed. However, a large chunk of Westbrook's angst stems from said lack of accountability. They had a locker room meeting following a home loss to Portland. Westbrook was leading the meeting, went around the room indicating what was wrong and what each player needed to do to fix the losing streak, starting with himself. But when it came to Harden, however, the Beard wasn't as receptive to criticism as other teammates were. And former teammates have described the culture in Houston as problematic, highlighting a situation that caters far too much to its stars. Sound familiar? Locker rooms like that eventually implode. Yeah, I'm looking at you, Clippers. At the end of the day, guys, here's what it comes down to. It is sad that Harden and Westbrook couldn't figure out how to play together. It's sad that the Rockets couldn't figure out how to put the right players around them. It's sad that no one seems to want to give it another chance to try and make it work. What it is not, guys, is surprising. I called this a year ago.
So Jay just took about a 5-minute victory lap. Congratulations on that. Get your water at the finish line, my sir. All right, so all I'm going to say is this. Harden should go. I know it's hard to get rid of somebody with 3 years on his contract. And here is my bold prediction.
Ooh.
If he goes to the Nets, which I think he's going to push, he's not going to join Kyrie and KD. He's just going to join KD. I think the Nets would ship Kyrie back, ship a boatload of picks, and it would be a KD Harden joining of the minds in Brooklyn. I think Harden would love to play with KD. KD could slowly get himself back. This would be Harden's team. You're going to lose a lot, but I think if you bring Kyrie over, and I think the Nets realized last year that they already got the little drama out of Kyrie, I think they realized that this might not be the best fit. And then in that case, you might maybe you put him with Westbrook, or you let Westbrook go to Washington. There have been rumors of a Westbrook for Wall deal. Yep, I know Washington. I know Houston's going to want a lot more than just John Wall. I think that just makes the most sense. This is going to be a very interesting situation in this NBA hot stove, and I don't see them both playing for Houston. I know we've been talking about willing to get uncomfortable, but in the end, unfortunately, it's a players' league. The players will push this over the edge all of the time. It sucks. It's one of the biggest problems with the NBA. Logically, it shouldn't happen, but it does, and we do.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The irony to this is that the rumor is that Kyrie Irving is the guy who doesn't want this trade to go through for Harden coming to Brooklyn.
Of course not.
Because honestly, look, he left Cleveland because he wanted to be the star of the show. That failed in Boston. Now he comes back to Brooklyn. He's like, you know what? I want to be a sidekick again. And then he completes. Then he has his usual melodrama. And Kevin Durant hasn't even stepped on the court yet. Nope. On top of that, can you imagine if he's traded again? Like, what would I say about Kyrie Irving for all the – look, you want to talk about victory laps? I've been doing a victory lap on Kyrie Irving for about 5 years now. Like, I literally called Kyrie Irving being one of the greatest players with one of the biggest headaches you could possibly have in a locker room. And I said that for the longest. But, if James Harden is coming to Brooklyn, it literally would mean that they would have to send Kyrie Irving out to Houston to make that trade happen. There's no way I can see all three guys in one basketball in Brooklyn of all places getting along together. By the way, as I was talking, I just saw a flash across my screen. Klay Thompson suffered an Achilles tendon injury.
Ooh.
Lower right leg injury. It says he might have torn his Achilles. So that is a very, very unfortunate, significant injury for Golden State.
Man, you can't. The Warriors just can't catch a break right now. I think they want this dynasty to continue, but maybe 2019 was the closing of an era where they had 5 straight titles. All right.
Let's hope not. Let's hope not, Rabbi, because they were fun to watch.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, guys. That does it for another edition of On the Sports Lines. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, my name is Stephen Rabinowitz. Y'all knew the deal. On every Thursday, although this is Wednesday, so pretend it's Thursday. We're live on Facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines. You can check out our extensive library on YouTube.com/OnTheSportsLines. And because I have nothing written down,
you can follow us on Twitter at ONTHS Sportslines, where you will catch the link for this show when it goes up tomorrow.
Because I've talked for 3 hours tonight on multiple platforms. We're all taking the week off next week. We're off for my birthday. I'm sorry,
and Thanksgiving.
That was rough for my birthday. And we'll be back in 2 weeks to look at the NFL through the quarter poll.
Three-quarter poll.
Yeah, well, the 3-quarter poll, but again, whatever. It's Sadiq Bey as a power forward. I don't care. Good night from On the Sports Lines.
Good night, everyone.
Everybody. Stay safe.